Talk Show.
Recorded live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the Black Science Fiction Society.com website. This is one of those auspicious Fridays. This is June 13th, 2014, and our special guest tonight is Derrick Richardson, and he's a multi-threat. My name is William Hayashi. I'll be your host for tonight, and we might as well plunge right in. First of all, Derrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much, William. I really appreciate being here.
Well, we're glad to have you. Now, where are you coming from tonight?
Oh, I'm based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah, because Jarvis, who's manning the board, he's down in Tennessee. I'm here up in Chicago. It's amazing what technology allows us to pull off these days.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
Well, for people who don't know, you can kind of look at some of the things that Derrick has done. He's the founder of Arthawk Entertainment, Inc., and is that based in Philly with you?
Yes. The primary, insofar as the primary administrative offices are here, but again, as you indicated earlier, thanks to technology and the wonders of the Internet, our folks are literally all around the world. We've got Alex up in New York, and there's Christopher Michael Taylor, who's also based here in Philadelphia. We have Jean-Francois Jejiquel in France. We've got Jesse Lasatin in the Philippines. We've kind of got a virtual corporation going on here, but the actual address is here in good old Philadelphia.
That's pretty cool. Now, I mean, are you a native of Philly, or are you a transplant? Where did you grow up?
Transplant. I actually grew up in Sumter, South Carolina. I was born and raised there up until about age 6. My biological mother had passed away from a kidney infection, and so my dad and I, we moved up north to Elizabeth, New Jersey. And then from there, we ended up moving in 1979 to Atlantic City. My dad, he was a pipe fitter. He's retired now. And he ended up working on the casinos in Atlantic City. And so we ended up moving to Atlantic City in 79, and I basically was there until, I guess, about 84. I attended the Art Institute of Philadelphia with my best friend and writing partner, James Allen. And then I came back home for a half a second, then went back to Philadelphia in about 88, and I've been here ever since.
Wow. And so, I mean, with all of that moving around, let me ask you this: at about what age did you start kind of discovering where some of your artistic bent lay? You know, was it elementary school, high school, or go ahead, tell us.
Elementary school in Elizabeth, New Jersey, at Sacred Heart. I'll never forget. The nuns gave us a assignment to do some type of artwork involving Jesus. So what I did was I took like a bunch of old cardboard cartons and stuff, and you know those thumbtacks they let kids use. I don't know about now where you can spread them open. And so what I did was I took I drew a picture of Jesus. I segmented all the limbs. I attached the tacks and spread them out so that the elbows and everything were hinged. And then I put him on the cross, so it was like posable Jesus on the cross. And I took it into school, and the nuns were like, "Whoa!" they said, "Man, you've got a God-given talent." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, this is pretty cool."
So I mean, and so like your talent, or at least the awakening of that, grew out of going to was it a Catholic school? I'm sorry, did I miss that?
Oh yeah. Well,
it was a Catholic school. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a scientist. But then I just started to lean more and more towards the art. And then once I discovered comic books, that was it. That was just game, set, match. That actually happened a couple of years after that whole incident, because I had started drawing and sketching, doodling in my notebook like most aspiring artists will want to do. And my babysitter took me to the store, to the local newsstand in Elizabeth, and I ended up getting my first 3 comic books, which were Planet of Vampires, Tiger Man, and C.C. Beck's 70s run on Shazam. And that was it. I kind of like just went berserk from there. I would go to the local newsstand. I mean, these kids nowadays, they got it so good with the comic book shop and everything. But I would go to the local newsstand, and I would just go through the spinner rack, and I was buying Cockrum and Claremont, soon to be Byrne and Claremont X-Men, and I was hooked on that, and anything by John Buscema or John Romita or Gene Colan with Tomb of Dracula. You know, Kirby, at first, myself and my friend at the time, we were like the 2 primary comic book people in my school at Sacred Heart, Guy Marcinkowski. We didn't quite get Kirby at the time. We really loved, like, Buscema and everything, but Kirby, over the years, I really grew to appreciate what he could do and what he did, and also from a professional standpoint, just his stuff is just so powerful. It's just something to be seen. But yeah, I ended up really going all in with regards to comic books. I guess in about 2 years or something like that, I literally had like hundreds of comic books. They were kind of starting to take over my room.
So it sounds kind of like you started more off as a collector because you liked the art form. And then at what point did you start drawing on your own? Because I'm assuming you did start drawing, correct?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Actually, I guess about 6 months into collecting, I started drawing. I started drawing them. As a matter of fact, we had a school newspaper. Actually, to be more accurate, it was like carbon paper. I mean, this is really dated, but it was done on carbon paper, and so we were allowed like 2 pages for comic strips. So Guy had a comic strip. I had a comic strip. This character called the Jaguar, and our friend Miguel Orozco, that was his name. He had a character. I can't remember the character right now, but his stuff was so sharp, and his artwork was so tight. We were just in amazement of it. But yeah, so we started doing comic strips, and then I started creating characters and everything. I guess I was around about 8, 9 years old, something like that. So it was like immediately afterwards, I was just like, okay, I think I could come up with some stuff. And then, of course, I guess about a year or 2 years later, I ended up getting, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I read through that in about a half hour. I was like, okay, I know how to draw comic books now.
It was like that, huh?
Yeah, right. Little did I know. No, you didn't.
Well, that's pretty good because first of all, it bespeaks of a confidence, a confidence in your own creative talent, and it also speaks of the fact that you weren't at a decision point at all. You just decided, hey, I'm an artist. I can draw. And so at about that age, what kind of response were you getting from, your friends, your family, school, what have you?
Over a couple of years, I ended up turning into one of the quote-unquote heavy hitter school artists. Like, people would come to me to draw stuff and things like that. My dad at the time, it was very interesting because he was a construction guy. And on the one hand, he was basically like, okay, how are you going to make money at that? But then on the other hand, he would do stuff to encourage me. I'll never forget, one day he came in from work, And he was like, yeah, I was over by, we had in Atlantic City, there was like this used bookstore. And they had used and new bookstores. I forget the name of it. But anyway, he came in and was like, yeah, I saw some stuff, and I think you may like it. Okay, here. He gives me, unbeknownst to him, I was just like, okay, this was a destiny moment. He gives me volumes 1 and 2 of Steranko's History of Comics and Jerry Robinson's History of the Comic Strip. I mean, he just picked them up.
Yeah, I was going to say he just picked them up off the shelves and said, "Oh, what the heck? This is for him, for you, rather."
Yeah. And I mean, as the years went on, I was just like, that was the very definition of a seminal moment, because I read that and just the whole history of comics from the pulps up to the present, and then the comic strip from Yellow Journalism and the Yellow Kid, Cotton Genre Kids, Crazy Cat, Blondie and Dagwood, Dick Tracy, all the way up to Peanuts and Calvin and Hobbes, and I'm just like, wow, this is what I'm getting involved in? This stuff is cool.
That's like a great influence on you. For me, my folks, they didn't. I'm not a comic creator at all, but one of the things that my dad did was he was like a sci-fi nut. I mean, way back, and so I start reading science fiction, probably in the earliest of the 60s, and seeing all of that, being able to read that, having that accessible,
right,
was such an influence. And for you to, I mean, those things that you got, those are treasures, actually, because they give you more. I mean, you could read a comic. That's one thing. You could read a graphic novel. That's another thing. But to look at the history and the construction and the social commentary and all of the facets of what comics were bringing to our culture in those years, that was a pretty amazing find for you to get.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then it was like the next year, what was it, Heroes World had started to open up at the different malls, and we had gone to Livingston Mall, and I saw there was a Heroes World, and I ran in there and proceeded to lose my mind, and I'm looking at all these books. That's where I got the copy of How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, because I saw that, and I saw Maurice Horn's World Encyclopedia of Comics, which looked like this giant ancient tome, this dust jacket with this red cloth-bound hardcover thing. And I was just like, please get me these 2 books, and I'll never ask for anything for the next 2 months. He was like, oh, my God, you're such a liar, but okay, here. Yeah. And then, again, here I am with the World Encyclopedia of Comics, and, man, that thing was like 500-600 pages, and, now I'm, like, finding out about comics all over the world. I got the first time hearing about manga, hearing about French albums and Mobius and all this other stuff, and it was really mind-blowing. It really was.
And it's funny because it sounds like that even though he was walking that narrow line of, I want to support my kid and what he's interested in, but I also want to remind him kind of gently on the side that, in life, you have to make some money off of whatever it is you're going to do.
Oh, it wasn't gently. He was very direct.
It wasn't gently at all. No, it was like, you got to be good at this. Okay.
Oh, yeah. No, my dad's always been a real straight shooter kind of guy, and it's like, kid, there's a reason they call artists starving artists. Are you sure, you need to, like, I don't know, get a print shop or something. Open up a print shop or a copy shop. You want to do, to him, that was art, because people who did that, they make money.
Right.
So it took a minute. It took a minute for him to see, oh, okay, he can actually make a living at this. I think the first time he really saw me at a convention and people coming up and I'm signing books and drawing things like that. And then, you know, at the time I had started working with my, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but my friend and mentor, Paris Collins, I had started working with him, and I was starting to make money as far as part of the studio. And so he finally came up to me, and I was like, man, I didn't think you were going to be able to make any money off of this, but you're actually making kind of a living now. I said, see, Dad, I tried to tell you. He was like, okay, go on with your bad self.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
Oh, yeah.
And so, okay, so you go through elementary school doing that. High school, same thing, were you kind of still building your art, or did you actually get it to the point where you were making money in high school? I mean, about how old were you when you started, you know, pulling in some cash for your art?
Well, what happened with high school, I was one of the school artists. And at the time, I was, like, focused on, I'm going to get a job at Marvel Comics. I mean, looking back, I was nowhere near ready to get a job in Marvel Comics, but that's where I was focused on. And I had decided when I was 13 that by the time I was 21, I would be a working comic book artist. So what ended up happening, Reader's Digest version, is that I went to high school, attended high school, and then it was funny. My senior year of high school, I got hit by a car on my bike, and I ended up having to get my teeth wired and stuff. I was very fortunate, knock on wood. I mean, no broken bones, but I had to get my teeth wired because I hit the ground mouth first. That was fun. But the thing is, I ended up at a in Philadelphia, Bob Greenberger convention. And, you know, my teeth are wired, I'm in pain, but I was like, I'm going to this convention, I'm going to be in the art contest. So I'm working on this picture of Wonder Woman, and this guy comes by, and he's like, wow, that's a pretty good picture of Wonder Woman there. And I said, thanks. He said, so what, are you going to be in the art contest too? And he was like, no. And then I looked, and I saw he had, like, a black, like, leather portfolio case. I said, man, that looks like a professional portfolio case. And I said, so what's your name? And he says, oh, I'm Paris Collins. And in my head, I'm like, Paris Collins? Because I had just read Comic Scene magazine that had been out, and they were like, yeah, Paris Collins, up and rising, you know, new star at DC New Talent Showcase. And I'm like, whoa, this is Paris Collins. And he's black. Those were the two things that popped in my head. I was just like, wow, look at this. This is amazing. You know, I had never met a professional comic book artist, and I had never met a black professional comic book artist like that. You know, well, let's put it this way, as far as personally one-on-one like that. I mean, I've been to conventions and stuff before, got to meet my idol, George Perez, but, I mean, somebody who's actually interacting like that, up until then, I had never really had that happen. So then he said, come on by my table. I give you some pointers and stuff like that. So I stopped by his table, and then it started this thing where every couple of months, I'd go to a show in Philly. He'd be there, and we'd end up talking, and we'd go over stuff and things like that. And then when I finally moved to Philly, you know, it turned out that the people that I ended up moving in with, they were all friends. Most of them had gone to high school together. And after a couple of years or so, Paris started getting, like, tons of work. So he decided to start a studio, which then became Maximum Overtime Studios. And I was one of the founding members. So we started off, you know, I started off with all the usual apprentice stuff, erasing the gutters, cleaning stuff up, you know, doing a little bit here and there. And then over time, you know, he would go over all the basics with us, you know, and then as time went on, he'd let us do a panel here, a background there, you know, and then eventually he let me do actual layouts and full pencils and things like that, and it turned into a job.
And how old were you?
21.
How cool is that?
Yeah. I mean, I basically started doing it at the time that I said I was going to do it. It worked out. It worked out very well. I should have been a bit more. I should have had a bit more of a work ethic than I did at the time, and that's something that has been hammered home over the decades, and that's something that I always try and make sure I let like younger artists and stuff know, because artists can sometimes be a bit on the flaky side, and they tend to want to draw when the mood hits them. And if you're going to be a commercial illustrator or commercial artist, you're doing this as a living, you have a client, or you have a fan base or what have you, you got to handle business and get work done, period.
Well, a lot of creators struggle with just that issue. I mean, first of all, a lot of creators don't understand the diligence of flying their craft. Here I'll give you an example. I'm a novelist, and I know, now that people know that I'm a writer, they come to me and they tell me, oh yeah, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book about X, Y, Z, or whatever. And I go, well, how long have you been writing it? Oh, I've been working on it for probably about 6-7 years now. And I ask them, when do you write? And they go, well, my day is so busy. I can only write when I feel like writing. I really have to be in the mood. And I explain to them, then what you have is you have a hobby.
Exactly.
Because you have not absorbed the work ethic in order to be whatever it is, to be a writer. And just for me, every day when I'm in the middle of writing a book, every day at 10 p.m. I start writing or editing, and I go till 2 in the morning, no matter what, every single day, because I treat it like a job. Because if you're going to do something commercial, you have to treat it as a job. That's a tough thing for kids to pick up. And when I say kids, I mean not that, well, I'm like 84, but I mean when I say kids, I mean like 20s, 30s, 20-somethings, 30-somethings, because we're not necessarily taught that. You would think that
right.
Having to do homework would have given some ethic. But again, homework is coercion. Very few people, especially guys, just run home and do their homework. Some do. I don't want to, paint that broad a brush. But when you are an artist and when it is a commercial concern for you, as you said, I mean, what you said is so important. People have to know that this is not oh man, it's really nice outside. I'm gonna go hit the street and do this and do that, and then maybe if I feel, if I get home early enough, then I'll maybe take a look at what I'm supposed to be doing. And,
right.
and it's just not like that, is it?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, all the movies that have come out, as far as everything from Winter Soldier to X-Men or what have you, I haven't seen them yet. Because
right.
I'm working on the Kickstarter, I'm working on various other projects, I'm putting the site together, I got to get content done, and every time I go, you know what, maybe I take a couple hours and go to the movies, it's like, and in those same couple of hours, you could do this, and this. As I was telling someone the other day, that's why a couple of years ago I stopped looking at sports. I mean, I used to look at, I was a football guy, go
sure.
Eagles.
Oh yeah, yeah.
but then after a certain point, I said, you know what? This is 2 to 2.5 hours that I could actually be doing work. So I'm going to just, maybe I'll look at the playoffs, maybe I'll look at the Super Bowl, but other than that, I'll just catch stuff on highlights if I'm even going to do that. Let me go ahead and get things done. Because
I know.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I know exactly what you're talking about. When I started writing my first book, I had to cancel my cable. Because I'm the kind of guy who, if I'm paying for the movie stations,
right.
I'm going to watch the movies. I don't care how many times The Hunt for Red October comes on. Right. If it's on, I have to watch it. And you so hit the nail on the head. You have to develop the strength and the I don't know what it is, what you would actually call it, but you have to have the seriousness about what you're doing in order to not do those distractions. For me, I don't have cable. I don't even have a television attached to an antenna. I will watch DVDs, or I'll even go back into my, don't tell anybody I still have this. It'll be between you and me. I still have a VHS tape library. And,
there
and
you go.
Those out. Oh, okay, all right. Don't tell them. Really, okay, you could maybe say something like that, but don't tell them this. I have over 500 laser discs.
Wow.
Okay? Yeah, exactly. So I got those big-ass one foot wide DVDs, yeah. So, but the thing is I know this kind of like obsessive-compulsive addiction I have for movies. I mean, I love movies. I write movies. I make movies.
Oh, same here.
And I love watching them. But still, if I have a novel to do, I mean, my first two novels had like 220,000 words each. You can't write a novel like that in a short amount of time if you're not dedicated. I would imagine it's exactly the same thing for you, man. You can't do the body of work that you've done if you don't have a work ethic. So, I mean, I'm right with you. I understand exactly what you're saying. And how do these young kids take that when you explain that to them? Do they get it, or does it take them a little while to kind of glom onto that?
Most of them don't, because like I was saying to someone the other day, most creative types, they go through different phases depending on their age. And usually during the 20s and during our 20s, we tend to go through a prima donna phase, or a prima omo. I found out prima omo is the male version, prima donna is female. Anyway, so the thing is, I went through my prima omo phase in my 20s, and I didn't get nearly as much work as done as I needed to get done looking back. But the thing is, in answer to what you were saying earlier, William, what got me serious as far as doing what it is that I needed to do, my best friend, one of my best friends, my brother, James Allen, we've been friends since sophomore year of high school. I was best man at his wedding. He was my writing partner. We co-created I Am Power Unlimited, Action Angels International, a whole bunch of other stuff. He had asthma his whole life, and but he always had it in control. And we were always used to, okay, he's got it in control. James is always going to be here. He's like a rock.
Right.
Well, in 2009, he had an asthma-induced heart attack, and he passed away.
Oh man.
Yeah. And
how old was he?
Oh God, James was, that was 2009. Oh my God, he was in his early 40s. Yeah, he was in his early 40s, and that was a major moment for me. And then a couple of years later, my friend and co-founder, Lou Scarborough, who actually, when I first started what eventually became Arthawk Entertainment, he was my co-founder. He was my co-founder, one of the greatest African American animators ever, bar none. I mean, he worked on and for everybody. He worked on Rock and Roll with Nelvana. He worked on the Godzilla cartoon. He worked on Smurfs. He worked on Batman the Animated Series. He worked on stuff for Disney. He worked on tons of stuff. So we were going to put all this stuff together. And Lou always had this cough. And, he would say it was walking pneumonia. But it turns out it wasn't walking pneumonia. It was the cancer from colon cancer eating his lungs away. And Lou passed away last year. And then 30 days later, one of my other friends from our original Maximum Overtime studio, Mark Hyman, he passed away also from colon cancer 30 days after Lou. So
you're not a carrier or anything, are you?
No, not at all. Not at all. What I'm saying, I'm saying all of that to say that it's really been illustrated over the past decade or so, because then there were other people in addition to that. You know, my friend L.A. Banks, Wayne McDuffie, a couple other people. It just got hammered home over and over again. Get done what you got to get done.
Right.
Just get done what you got to get done, because you know your time, as far as how much time you got, this is not guaranteed by anyone. So get done what you got to get done when you need to get it done. That's it.
And let's be honest. Nobody knows when misfortune may befall them. And you know, as you get older, and maybe you have a family or you have other obligations, you know, that's the other thing. You definitely, and this goes to the part of the business of doing business, because it's not just an artistic endeavor. It is a business. If it's not a hobby, it's a business. And if it's a business, then you have to meet your deadlines. You have to make sure you pay your bills. You have to make sure to put away what you need to retire, or even pay the bills for your family. I mean, nobody wants their family out on the street just because they're jacking around and you know, miss their deadlines. So yeah, that was a good lesson for you to learn so early, you know?
Oh yeah. So I mean, everything that I do at present, I just make a point of things that have to get done. It's about getting them done, and getting them done well, but getting them done and finished.
Yeah.
And as far as younger artists, that's the lesson I really try to impart, besides the lesson that tends to be lacking these days with regards to just knowing the basics. That tends to have been and is being ignored more and more, it seems, as far as people not knowing how to do backgrounds or do a location shot, or know basic composition, or the law of thirds, or diagonals, or avoiding tangents, or any of the other hundreds of things you need to know in order to do solid professional level comic book art. That seems to be becoming more and more of a lost art, and it's something that both myself and the rest of my team, we're definitely about imparting to others, both during the building of Arthawk Entertainment in the Eon, and also whenever we get a chance. I'm forever at shows, you know, giving lists to people of, hey, look, you need to get this book. You need to check this out. You need to get the Bridgman book. You need to get the Hogarth book. You know, you need to get the Scott McCloud books on comics. You need to get the books by Tom Bancroft on composition. Even if you only want to do comic books, guess what? You need to look at some animation stuff, because you need more dynamics and understanding of movement and gesture. So go get Disney's Illusion of Life. You know, go get some stuff as far as lectures by Walt Stansfield, and you know, there's just a bunch of stuff that, as far as just essentials, that people, you know, some people are missing nowadays. And that kind of happened during the 90s. I mean, I know when it happened with the whole image thing. And, you know, splash pages and stuff are nice, but splash pages are like an exclamation point. And comics, just like any type of literature or storytelling, has a particular rhythm, like music. So every page can't be an exclamation point. If not, then it loses its reference as to why it's an exclamation point. Now it's no longer an exclamation point. There's no differentiation. Yeah.
So where did you go to learn all of these things? I mean, did you take formal classes? Because I heard some very definite things. You know, the law of thirds. You know, all of these things that great artists study so that their fundamentals are good. You know, sometimes if something is not working out for you creatively, if you hark back to your fundamentals, sometimes you regain your sense of artistic creativity. It comes back to you quicker. So, I mean, when you were in school, you know, either in high school or in college, were you taking any drawing classes?
Yeah. Well, up until the Art Institute of Philadelphia, I was self-taught. You know,
Okay.
I just read and got any and everything I could get. I remember what was it? The Art of Frank Frazetta. Oh my God! When I saw Frazetta stuff, that blew the top of my head off. But I remember them talking about how he studied under George Bridgman and how he had the Bridgman books, and he would just draw out of the Bridgman books hundreds of times a day. So I went and said, okay, I'm going to get the George Bridgman books. I got the George Bridgman books, and they did. It's like they're brutal and in depth, but they teach you more about anatomy than anything you, as far as I'm concerned. Because people, you know, there are people who went and checked out Hogarth, but for me, I was a Bridgman guy right from the get. The thing is, I did Bridgman. Then I was just drawing from life as much as possible, and then of course, like every comic book guy, I had my favorites that I would swipe from. So I loved George Perez, John Byrne, John Romita, John Buscema. You know, Paris always says I'm a real bread and butter kind of guy. You know, he was like, yeah, you're like a Jerry Ordway, you know, Wally Wood type of thing. Everything is where it's supposed to be. Yeah, everything has to be where it's supposed to be. And then perspective, I got a really good handle on perspective like early. So I was really a stickler, and then especially, my God, I was like idolizing Perez at the time, actually even now. And his attention to detail and perspective, I just went perspective crazy, doing like 12-panel pages and all this other stuff. Anyway, what really solidified and organized my my artistic toolkit was going to the Art Institute of Philadelphia, because at Holy Spirit and then at Atlantic City High School, I was like one of the school artists. But guess what? At the Art Institute of Philadelphia, everybody was a school artist. You know, so it's like, right. So what? And then what we would do is everybody, every day, after you did, you know, once you did your day or week's assignment, you put it up on the wall. And the teacher and everybody else would tear it to shreds.
Right.
And over time, you started to find out this is what you do, this is what you don't do. You know, and then it was very interesting at the Art Institute, because you had such a concentration of artistic power. You had sculptors, you had illustrators, graphic design people, airbrushing. That's where I really got it, because I did airbrushing for quite some time, because that was the other thing. Besides comics, I fell in love with the work of Alberto Vargas, who created the Varga Girl for Esquire magazine back in the 40s. And,
sure.
And I started doing watercolor work, because he said start off with watercolors first and then learn the airbrush, because the airbrush is just another tool. So I started doing airbrushing at the Art Institute, and I had a good knack for it. The other thing is, at the Art Institute, you had like top-level graphic designers and illustrators as your teachers, so you not only got like just standard basics, you also found out what was going on real world, because they're busy working artists. It was very interesting. My one illustration teacher, Mike Powell, he just kept like, man, you're so good. Why do you want to be a comic book artist? They don't make any money. He basically said, man, you can get a job in illustration. You work for time or whatever, you're getting $5K a pop. He was like, you know how long it's going to take you to make $5K? And, you know, keep in mind, this was like the 80s, like pre-creators' rights and things like that in the comic book field. So
sure.
He was correct. I'll never forget Don Perlin, when I was at a convention, he was like, man, you're really good. You know what? You may want to do illustration work or graphic design work. You know, as far as income, I don't know about, you know. And I was like, wait a minute. What do you mean you're a working comic book artist? What do you mean just forget about comics? But yeah, there were harsh realities up until the whole '80s creators' rights, and then the whole '90s image thing. A lot of the quote unquote old timers and old school guys, they became as good and fast as quick as they did because they had put food on the table.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, again, it goes back to being prepared to do the business of business. Even though you're
right.
creative, excuse me, you still have to perform. And see, now you went about it the right way. You sound like you're mostly self-taught. You sound like you discovered art as a medium and not just something to do. I mean, the basis for artistic design and things like that. So being self-taught, you've already expressed that the fundamentals were very, very important. And
oh yeah. Well,
once you go through that, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because I kind of went on a semi-tangent for a second there. The thing is, with the Art Institute, what it did was it provided focus, and it also showed options. Because although I was still adamant that I was going to be a comic book artist,
right.
I learned to paste stuff. I learned graphic design. I learned typography. I learned color theory. I learned how to work a stat camera. This stuff nowadays, people, stat camera, rubber cement, Ruby lift, what are you talking about? Basically all the stuff that Photoshop can do and InDesign.
Yeah,
we used to have to do by hand.
That's still learning your fundamentals, and that's, you as much as you would discount it, if you don't know color, if you don't know shading,
right.
if you don't know,
right.
if you don't know anatomy, if you're just winging it, your stuff looks like crap. Okay, let's be honest. Because there are so many genuinely good artists out there that you can't skimp on the fundamentals. You can't fake it until you make it. Because there's too many people out there who know how to do it and who are hungry enough to go ahead and do the work. So it's again,
absolutely right.
Yeah, your path was strong. Your path was righteous. Your path was correct. And when the same thing for me. When people talk to me about, well, I want to write a book, I go, well, okay, how's your writing skills? And you go, well, I'm going to be writing about me. As if, they don't need any skills to write about themselves.
Right.
And just between you and me, don't tell anybody I say this, but sometimes people say, I want to do my life story because I think my life would be very interesting. And I go, well, have you done any writing in the past? I go, well, no, not really. I go, well, what makes you think your story's going to be compelling? Because you're boring the hell out of me right now. And then they get upset with me. I don't know what the problem is. So, but again, if you don't have the fundamentals, if you can't write a sentence in English, there's a writer, I'm not going to name his name because I don't want to embarrass him, but there's a writer who goes and his dialogue is urban, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And yet the inner voices of his characters, it's all proper English.
Mm.
Can you imagine how disjointed that is? I mean, again, that's another example of somebody not knowing the fundamentals of what it is they're going to do.
Right.
I mean,
no, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, you going to the Art Institute, and even though you talk about getting that beat down, that critique had value. That critique made you stronger. That critique showed you where you were going wrong. I mean, there's no replacement for that. And so many people today who start out as creatives have such thin skin. When they say, hey, could you take a look at my stuff and give me your honest opinion, essentially what they're really saying is, hey, can you take a look at my stuff and then give me as many strokes as I want to hear?
Absolutely.
Because most people don't want to hear critique.
No, and understand, when I came out right before we officially started apprenticing with Paris and also our other friend Martin King, he took both myself and Chris Taylor because we've both been friends since the Art Institute of Philadelphia. thing is, he took both of us, and we both just knew we were like all of that in our early 20s, and took our artwork and very succinctly and very deliberately deconstructed all of it. I mean, by the time we came out, by the end of the day, we were both like, we don't want to draw comics ever again. Our stuff is crap. But then he did that. I mean, they did that, rather, to show, okay, this is where you're going wrong, and now we're going to show you what you need to do to get back on the path and do it right. Again, fundamentals.
Sure.
Fundamentals. I'll be him and Martin. I'm forever thankful to them for that. And he actually said something at the time that we both like, man, what's this old guy talking about? But he was prophetic. He told us, Paris told us right at, I think that same week, he said, so what are you going to be, an illustrator or a comic book artist? Because you can't be both. And we were like, what the hell is he talking about? You can't be both. We're like, oh, no, man, because by that time we were, I think Kevin McGuire was out, and, like, all the real, like, illustrative artists started coming out. And we were like, oh, no, man, we're going to be illustrators and comic book artists. And he was like, okay. But then over the years, we both realized what it was he was saying, because comic book art, the language of comic book art and storytelling, even with the detail and the flourishes and everything, it's a shorthand.
Yes,
it's a shorthand. It's a shorthand. Why? Because it's a periodical, and periodicals have to come out monthly because people have to get their monthly Wednesday fix. And the thing is, illustrators, they're taking their time, they're deliberate, they're precise, and it takes time. So then they take time, and that takes time away from the inker, and that takes time away from the colorist, and that takes time from the letterer, and that takes time from the pre-press guy. So then the book is late, and then the book is constantly late. And then everybody becomes late so often it now becomes the new norm. So being an illustrator is great. I mean, there are guys that run circles around me and a whole bunch of people illustration-wise, but it doesn't lend itself to doing monthly periodical work, which is cool. I mean, if you want to do, French graphic novel level stuff, then hey, have at it, but don't expect to do it as a monthly periodical. It just doesn't. It's not realistic, and then you not only end up messing things up, not unless you can get a page rate at the level that that you can do stuff like that, like a Alex Ross, But the thing is, if not, then you're messing up your overall salary, and on top of that, you're going to end up generating a bit of bad blood and imagery through the rest of the chain of people that it takes to do a monthly periodical.
Well, and the other thing is, you never get that second chance to give a first impression. So if somebody hires you to do a job and you can't execute, and you wind up costing people money,
absolutely,
that's going to that's going to cause a problem,
Oh yeah,
and then you won't get a job. You get the bad reputation, and then you go, oh man, the world is just against me because and you make up reasons because most people are not realistic about how to conduct business because they don't know. They just don't know.
Right. No, absolutely. And it took my 20s to get that together, but by my 30s, oh no, I got that one. And that was that's the thing. Yeah.
By your 30s, you have to pay bills.
That's right.
unless you're living with somebody who wants to just pay for your lifestyle. By your 30s, you may have a car note, you may have rent, you may have, all kinds of things that have to get paid. And then again, that wraps us around to the fact that, though you may be a creative, and if you're an independent creative, you're going to be spending more time about the business of doing business than you will be doing your creative, the creative thing that you're doing. If you're a writer, you have to promote more. If you're a comic book creator, you have to promote more. I will tell you, I have the utmost respect for people who write comics, and the reason why is you have limited time and limited real estate in order to tell your story. And if you do that well, that takes an awful lot of talent. I don't think I have the talent to be a comic book writer. I mean, obviously I can't draw because everybody would have like 3 fingers and 1 thumb or something like that. But well, no, I'm serious. But the fact of the matter is, like you said earlier, it is storytelling. It's still storytelling in its essence. And having the ability to do that, I respect very much. At this point, when you're mostly doing your own work. Do you do anything on commission, or are you doing any pickup work?
I do some commission on occasion, but right now I'm so focused on building the Eon and building Arthawk Entertainment and building a library of content for everything, both myself and also with helping others that are going to be involved with what we're doing. That I don't consider it to be fair to say to people I'm going to be able to get things done and then I don't get them done because I've been there and done that, and nobody ends up enjoying that. So,
right.
The thing is, if I can do commissions, then I'll do them. If I can't, then I'll let people know, okay, look, it's going to take me this amount of time. If you're cool with that, then, a half down in the balance when I'm done, but I'm just letting you know you're not going to get it quick. If they're cool with that, then fine. But other than that, because, it's just past lessons and everything, hard lessons, but now my whole focus is Arthawk Entertainment. I mean, this has been 5 years in the making, putting this together, a whole, trial and error and ridiculous. I'm talking, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The equivalent of about 5 to 6 staple copy paper boxes worth of research. Yeah.
And for those people listening to this, you can take a look at some of the artwork and get a little better look at what Derrick has at. It's actually, there's no www. It's just the Aeon is here. TheAeon is here. ISHERE.com. Check out that website, because there are people who will obviously be listening to this as a podcast and won't see the links in the chat. There you'll get a pretty good look at the kind of art we're talking about, and an overview of where you're going currently creative, right?
Just a caveat, William. The site is still under construction. The site will be completely finished over the next 72 hours. Right now, as I'm telling people, we've got a really pretty house, and we're still moving the furniture in. So
if
there's
anyone, don't ever make excuses for that particular thing, because any creative who has a website, their website is actually under construction all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay? Absolutely. It's a friend of mine calls his a century of progress. He does. That's what he says. He says, this is my century of progress. I go, well, you should be so lucky to live that long. But but even when you talk about just in terms of a short amount of time, just a couple days until you have the content essentially where you want it for right now. A lot of people will be picking this up at a podcast, and they won't, it'll be that time.
Right.
Yeah.
And also they can see additional artwork, out at the Kickstarter, at the Eon, what we're doing right now, because of with regards to the campaign, we want to show people even more stuff, and show people that this concept is solid, is sound, and really get them to see the proof of concept as far as see it in actual motion. So by this time next week, things will be up where people can actually get a full feel for what the user interface is going to be like on the final global site when we launch that in 2015. Because as you said, this is basically a beta, and it's a continuous beta. It's continuously evolving and coming out and developing as things move along. And my main concern and our main concern as a team is to get as much content on that site over the next 3 months as is humanly possible, and continue to move forward from there with that. Because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. You have to show people that this is real and that this concept is solid and sound. And then on top of that, the platform and the distribution method that we've developed, it's basically first of its kind. The way that we've set everything up so that it's both fair and also available and accessible not only to users but also to professional level creators. Because as we've said in countless articles and what have you, and also on the Kickstarter page itself, my primary reason for doing this, besides obviously getting out the different characters and stories that both myself and other peers and co-creators have developed over the years, it's also the thing of entertainment right now is way too expensive for the average person. As I've said, a family of 4, it's easily, and this is just in Philadelphia, and somebody pointed out to me, add another $50 to $60 to New York, because I didn't realize he was basically saying, 3D ticket in New York, that's like $21. I was like, what? I said it's $15.50 here in New York. In Philadelphia, and he's like, oh yeah, man. I was like, oh wow, yeah, I really do have to reassess that. But be that as it may, you're basically talking about close to $200 for a family of 4 to go see one movie. You're talking
and that's tough. That's a rough road to hoe. And
nowadays, absolutely.
And then let's be honest, how much of that entertainment is really appropriate for kids?
Oh, that's a whole nother helpline right there.
Well, we got a whole nother hour. I want to talk about that too, because that's very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the things is you talk about the kinds of things you do when you meet people. I want to talk to you a little bit about what you do when you go to conventions and things like that. Hang on a second. You're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, and this is an exclusive product of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. Our host not our host. I'm the host. Nobody wants to hear about me. Our guest tonight is Derrick Richardson, and he's the founder and CEO of Arthawk Entertainment. And you can check out his website in 48 hours from this broadcast, because he made that very clear, at no www, just the Aeon is here, and that's TheAeonishere.com to check out exactly what he's talking about. And he's got a Kickstarter campaign that's currently going on, right? Am I right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're about to go into day 18.
Yeah. So obviously there'll be more information about what Arthawk is trying to do, and so let me ask you about this. Let's talk specifically about I guess we would just call it the stories that you put together, the creative universe that you've put together that you're currently working so hard on. Is this well, give us a summary and let us know about, is this something for kids, for adults? take us on a little verbal tour of exactly where your creativity is, your creative universe is blossoming out of.
Okay. Well, for one, it's not just me. It's my editor-in-chief, friend, and the creator of the amazing Blackjack and other creations, Alex Simmons, Christopher Michael Taylor, the creator of Space Station Orbiter Cloud 99, and then I Am Power Unlimited and Action Angels International, both co-created, co-plotted, and now written by myself. But those were the creations that both myself and my friend James Allen Jr. Had created. Our whole thing from the get-go was accessible entertainment. With regards to, if you were to look at it from a movie rating standpoint, true PG-13. I'm saying true PG-13 because the stuff that's getting rated PG-13 now, I mean, some of that stuff, I'm like, you know what? That's actually a soft to a mid-level R. How is that PG-13? But
well, I mean, I understand that, but I mean, remember, the movie ratings are basically done. The MPAA, Motion Picture Association of America, is basically a lobbying arm for the big studios.
Right.
So what they've done is they have created the monopoly of ratings, and if you don't kiss somebody's butt, or if you're not a member of one of those big studios, if the film is not coming out of one of those big studios, the MPAA makes you go through all kinds of gyrations, because to what you said, you're absolutely right. We could watch as many heads getting cut off and blood and gore and all kinds of stuff like that, but heaven forbid somebody should see a penis on the screen or, a naked breast or something like that, and people lose their minds because, well, I don't want to get into the politics of or the sociology of it, but you're right. When you talk about putting together a true PG-13 product, you can't go by the rating that you would see in a movie. Because how ridiculous is it that they would say, oh, you lose your PG-13 if you say the F word more than once. You have one instance where you can say the F word and the movie is still PG-13, but if you say it twice, oh my God, then it becomes an R. And there's not much rationale about that. So it sounds to me like you're trying to bring a little bit of sanity to that kind of rating system through your work. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, basically myself, Alex, Chris, and other folks involved with us, like our animation consultant, Mike Kunkel, we're all basically like, okay, we definitely need more material that the family in general can enjoy and that's accessible to everyone. I'm not saying that everything is like G, because when you say all members of the family, people think in terms of, oh God, G-rated, blah 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 blah. That's really not what we're saying either. What we're basically saying is solid storytelling and entertainment, professionally done, but accessible to everyone from your 13-year-old nephew all the way up to your 58-year-old aunt. And there's something in it for everyone. The best entertainment, the best storytelling is accessible at all levels. I mean, case in point, the classic Looney Tunes stuff. Yeah, you just liked it as far as a kid, the sight gags and the physical comedy. But then, as you got older, you caught some of the in jokes and things like that Bugs and, Foghorn Leghorn and them would say, but you wouldn't catch it until you were like 18 or 20. But you still enjoyed it. Now you enjoyed it at a whole nother level. That tends to be missing nowadays as far as that subtlety and those different levels of, except for, and I would say again, like animation, a lot of really good of the best animation work these days. It still has that where it's accessible on multiple levels, and that's one of the things that we're definitely striving for.
Well, I mean, that almost seems like a dying art, because you mentioned Bugs, the Warner Brothers stuff. I think one of the best examples was the whole Rocky and Bullwinkle show. You want to talk about something that was written on two levels. I mean, kids loved it, but the politics, the sociology, all of that other stuff that they had in there was brilliant. And so adults didn't mind, it's almost like you're writing entertainment on two tracks, on two tiers simultaneously.
Right.
And is that what you guys are trying to accomplish?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, you got like Blackjack. Blackjack is straight up action adventure in the best Saturday morning serial pulp vein, but at the same time, it's talking about issues in various cultures, and he's talking about the racism and bigotry of his time and having to deal with that. So it's written on a number of different levels for wherever people are at their particular point of development. Be it if it's a 12-year-old where it's like, oh man, it's cool, man, he's on like horseback and he's doing this and he's fighting this and blah 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 blah, and then somebody in their 20s or 30s like, wow, that was really interesting. At that time, he went to Bangkok and he was dealing with this, and this. And dealing with the socioeconomic issues and politics of the day. The 30s were an incredibly, volatile period in world history in general. I mean, a lot of amazing stuff happened in the 20s and 30s. So, I mean, Alex has put together a very rich and layered tapestry in the tradition of the best storytellers, whereby it's accessible to anyone from 6 to 60. And
that's pretty good. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then the same thing with Chris and Space Station Orbiter Cloud 99. On the one hand, you've got space opera, and the best Starship Troopers, Star Wars type of tradition, combined with superheroes, a la like Legion of Superheroes, X-Men type stuff. But then again, he talks about the politics of the different planets and the interaction between them and the space station that has this technology that everybody wants, and how are people going to navigate insofar as accessing that, and then all the duplicity and skullduggery going on behind the scenes with that. Then Ion Power Unlimited, on the one hand, is these two young adults, and they've now got superpowers, and they're like, whoa, this is cool. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, superheroes, they've gotten a bit too much on the gritty side, and people kind of lost the fun of it all. And so we definitely want to bring that back. But then on the other hand, it's called Ion Power Unlimited. So it's talking about power in all of its different manifestations, because James Anderson, Avenger 1, and Sylvia Edwards, X4 The Unknown, Sylvia's father is mayor of Atlantic City, Sam Edwards, and being a classic politician, he sees, he knows the opportunity when he sees it. So they not only become the world's first superpowered beings, as far as they know, but they also become the world's first super celebrity. And so then you see the way the whole media thing works, and the way people, change as far as around you when things like that happen, when you get quote-unquote power. And then, the different types of power of celebrity, the power as far as geopolitics, the power behind the power, as far as the real power is usually hidden, it doesn't advertise, and just seeing the way that all interacts. So again, you see a story on multiple levels. And then Action Angels International. We've got an international modeling agency composed of superheroines. Okay, that's cool because you got fashion, you got pop culture, you got all this cool stuff combined with superheroics, but then at the same time, it's kind of a semi-front because the real thing that's going on is this eons-long battle between the forces, the literal forces of good and evil, and how that's affecting this world through the ages. So again, you've got multiple levels of story going on. So we want. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to ask. So if you would talk about the sociology of your creative universe, where do you? I guess what I want to know is, what is that constructed of? I mean, when you talk about your story arcs, when you talk about, where this creative universe is going, what's the entomology of that universe? I mean, what made it compelling to write the storylines that you did? Are they based on straight science fiction memes, or are they based on, a retelling of current events in a different light, but yet still highlighting the way people get things done now? I mean, where do the storylines come from at this point?
Oh, okay. Well, Alex can talk in more detail with regards to Blackjack, and same thing with Chris. But we're all major students of history, and both past and current events. And with regards to I Am Power Unlimited, and also with regards to Action Angels International, with I Am Power Unlimited, we all really can't avoid the whole cult of celebrity that has continued to manifest and that the internet has accelerated. And celebrities at this point, they're like the equivalent of the gods and demigods of the past.
Okay.
They're the quote unquote stars. So it's like, okay, well, let's take that concept and let's intermix it a little bit. We've got actual celebrities. They're movie celebrities. They're stars now. I mean, then on top of that, they're superpowered and enhanced quote unquote humans. So how are you going to basically? How's an action star going to compete with somebody who can fly? Lift destroyers and shoot beams out of their hands. I mean, and then what are the ramifications of that in the world with regards to geopolitics? Basically, you got a walking nuclear bomb. Actually, even beyond a nuclear bomb, and there are two of them. And then what happens if they reproduce? Oh my God. Who's going to control any of that? So the powers that be, they're looking at and assessing all of that, and then also from the government standpoint, okay, how can we utilize this? Because I mean, one of the things that I looked at and we looked at the beginning, it was a thing of, okay. Alan and Sylvie, actually, in the first episode, they actually tell their origin story on the Eartha Winslow show. Okay, and so what ends up happening is the government actually, if they had found out about it earlier, no one would have ever heard about what had happened, because they would have done what governments do. I mean, one, they're looking to protect the people, and two, they're looking to protect themselves. So they actually would have taken that slack. They would have taken it covert. But since they got as public as they did at the beginning, oh, well, it's too late for us to do that one. So now let's see how we can utilize this to our advantage and also utilize it from a PSYOPs perspective. Mm-hmm. So, there's all types of, when it comes to I Am Power Unlimited, off one way, and people are going to be, oh, yeah, I know this trope, I know this scene. You know, and then halfway through the story, it's going to do this flip that I'm looking forward to, where people are going to be like, what? Okay,
well,
this isn't quite what I was expecting.
Yeah, and the reason why I ask is because you know as well as I do how many different comic books there are out there, or how many different comic universes there are out there, and of course the universal problem that content creators face is, how do I differentiate my creative universe from everyone else's? And really that's the key, because you know once you decide that this is the way you want to go, you're really swimming against the tide in order to get recognition. And so, you know, I'm always curious about the particular storylines and what's going to distinguish them to raise them above the background noise level. And obviously you've thought that through. Let me ask this. I mean, with the kind of, I mean, up until today, you know, what are the ways that you have found to be most effective to bring people to your universe?
The main thing is they got to love the character. They got to love the character or the characters. If they don't love the characters, if they don't relate to them on any level or find something that's interesting about them,
right,
then the rest of it means nothing. And you know, it's you know, that's why I'm always saying, you know, especially as far as new writers, new artists, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, man, I wrote this new script. Okay, so did you read it out loud to yourself? Huh? Did you read it out loud? Did you check the dialogue? Oh, what are you talking about? Did you check the rhythm of the dialogue, and does it sound like actual real people talk and interacting with each other? And they like look at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you've got to be a listener of dialogue, of the rhythm of speech, and you've got to be a student of human behavior and the way people react given certain triggers. If not, then your stuff isn't going to come off real. It's going to come off contrived.
Right, right.
Yeah. You know, and that's for me. That's the essential thing. If you really can't grow to appreciate and love, you know, Alan and Sylvia and Sam and you know, I'm sorry now, James and Sylvia and James's family, his dad Ike, his mom, you know, Geraldine, his sister, you know, Jackie, his friends Tony, and oh God, I can't. Now I'm like drawing up.
Don't worry about it, man. I forget the names of my kids too. Yeah. So, but okay. So now at this point, you've identified the fact that what you know. For you guys, the most important thing at this point is developing three-dimensional characters and developing characters that ring true. And I hear you about the whole dialogue thing. As a matter of fact, the hardest thing that I had to learn, other than writing a sex scene, was how to write that artificial language, which is readable dialogue, because if you write dialogue the way people speak, it's unreadable. Like, I mean, if you just listen to a conversation, listen to how many times people don't need to finish a sentence, or someone immediately gets it and starts talking when the other person's still not done. I mean, writing dialogue is very, very hard, and that's one of the skill sets that people take for granted.
I
think back to that movie that Billy Crystal was in, Throw Mama from the Train. and so some woman had written about a submarine, and she said, dive, dive, as the sailor pulled the thing to make the boat do the thing to go under the water. You know, that sort of thing. You know, knowing that's the other thing, knowing what the hell you're writing about, too. So for your creative universes, do you have do you have like a character Bible? Do you have background information so that you keep things consistent? What's kind of just a quick overview of your process in terms of maintaining quality? Because quality control is probably the most essential facet of this kind of creation.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, at present, with regards to I Am Power Unlimited and Action Angels both, the story Bibles are semi-laid out, but they're being fleshed out more and more. With Action Angels, the initial focus is on the New York team, but there are 13 branches worldwide, and there's literally over 50 members. So you're talking a very layered, rich level of story.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is, like, what I basically do is I worked out the cosmology behind Action Angels, because it involves a lot of ancient Hindu and Taoist concepts, and but it's told in a quote unquote modern vernacular and understanding, so people can like hit the ground running and get it all.
Sure.
But the thing is, I had to do all of that first, because the way that the different characters get their abilities in Action Angels, it comes predominantly down through the matriarchal line, through the women. And so what happens is you can have the same abilities, like a character who has, like, say, pyrokinetic capabilities, but that could have happened back in that could have happened back in ancient times. That could have happened in the West. That could have happened during World War II. You know, and that same power set, it gets utilized and reinterpreted any number of different ways, and there's different repercussions from the use of it, and depending on the particular context. And then there's the whole thing as far as women in history and the world, and the way that they're treated and mistreated, you know, depending on if it's a matriarchal system or a patriarchal system, and the time factors with all of that. So Action Angels has like it's got a very wide breadth to it. And so that story Bible is just continuously expanding, and just as much, but not necessarily to the extent, because right now the primary focus is James and Sylvia to start with, is I Am Power Unlimited. So it's basically them, their supporting characters, and then of course the nemesis. You always have to have a nemesis. And then moving forward from there, once it does that flip midway through the storyline, then it expands from there. Because when it comes to Action Angels, and definitely when it comes to I Am Power Unlimited, I'm really about, all good stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You can take the concept, you can take the characters, put them in a different situation, put them in a different universe, but it should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Because stories that just go on and on and on and on and just never end, at least from what I'm seeing with regards to periodical comics and what have you, where, things supposedly change, but they never really actually do. I'm of the opinion now that what ends up happening is a certain amount of familiarity breeding contempt starts to creep in, and so now you got this situation where you see different characters, iconic characters and stuff, basically being put through the ringers by their creators and their fans. And I'm like, man, why are you doing all of this horrifying stuff to these characters? Limbs getting cut off, loved ones getting killed in all kinds of horrifying ways. It's just like, okay.
Well, I would ascribe that more to people being, unfortunately there being a dearth of creativity and kind of falling into that one-trick pony kind of thing where, well, this is working for us for now, and we'll stick with it we'll milk it till it's dry. And then the other part is,
definitely. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
No, I said definitely that God knows that's happening because a major cannibalization of the comics industry is going on right now. But you were saying?
Well, same thing for movies. I mean, when we talk about what kind of entertainment pulls in the most kind of money for, in our culture, obviously movies are big. And then all of a sudden to have a Superman who can kill somebody and doesn't care about the destruction of a city around him, that is a new meme for Superman. So it's we can debate whether it's good, bad, or whatever, but the fact of the matter is someone felt the need to do that in order to parse further, to continue on with that character. Almost like an emotional or ethical reboot. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And actually, and my girlfriend will reconfirm this, we were at the theaters and we're looking at it, and all the way up until then, even with all the disaster and everything, because I'm like, people are always saying, well, your superhero stuff isn't realistic. Like, realistic? Okay, you want to get realistic about superheroes? Let's talk about shrapnel. Shrapnel? Well, yeah. I mean, you got these guys hitting at hypervelocity speeds. There should be shrapnel all over the place. You ever seen a war situation, a combat situation? There's shrapnel. People getting cut up to shreds by flying pieces of objects. What do you think's going to happen when Superman and Mogul go and start fighting in the middle of a major metropolitan city? Stuff's going to get destroyed, and a lot of people are going to get killed. If you want to quote unquote be real. So what ended up happening was that scene, because I saw it happen. Man, God, I hope everybody who's listening saw Man of Steel. But for those who haven't listened, spoiler alert. Right, spoiler alert. Those who haven't seen Superman, spoiler alert. Right. So when I saw it happening, and I went, especially when Zod basically said, I mean, you saw it. He basically took his whole meaning away from him, and I was like, wow, this is not going to end well. And so the scene's coming up, and I'm like, don't do it. In my head, I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it. And then it happens, and I'm like, and I actually said it out loud. I was like, wow. I can't believe they just did that. It was just like, okay, as far as superhero iconography, you guys just changed some stuff with that. Other than that, up until that, I actually love Man of Steel. But yeah, that I wasn't too crazy. I wasn't too crazy about that. I mean, I can understand why the writer did it, and they're quote unquote trying to make Superman cool. No, they were lazy. They were lazy. Well, that's a whole nother helpline there. But yeah, the thing is, it really just comes down to you guys really don't have any understanding of what the core of that character actually is, and what you need to do to reactivate it for current audiences. And even then, it's only going to really appeal to a certain group in that audience, because you've got, Superman's optimistic. Superman's Apollo. It's the rising sun. It's a better day. It's not, Superman originally was conceived of as a metaphor for American ideals in a pre- and post-war U.S. Well, that was in what was it? That was in during the whole after World War I.
After
Right,
World War
right,
One, yeah.
Right, but before that, he was supposed to be the guy for the everyman, for the underdog. But actually, the core archetype is the demigod. He's Hercules. He's Heru. He's Apollo. He's the god that lives amongst men. And for some people that's a hard one to write because they're trying to figure out, well, how do I relate to this character? And people seem to have a major thing as far as an appeal for flawed characters and flawed heroes and anti-heroes at present. And there needs to be a counter to that to show this is why this is good, quote unquote. It's like, oh man, he doesn't kill, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, and that's not cool. It's like, yeah, actually it is, and this is why. And like you said, it really just comes down to overall creator laziness, not understanding the core concepts and archetypes that those characters are based upon. And, it's also just an overall darkening of the culture.
And it also, basically, the movie was nothing but disaster porn.
Well,
I mean, it really was.
It was, but at the same time, I looked at it like I said earlier. Okay, you guys want to see real? This is what it would look like. And no, it would not be pretty. That's the thing. They basically were appealing to what everybody wanted to see. I mean, especially from the video games, the Injustice, Gods Among Us, and all the other stuff coming out now. That's what people wanted to see, so they gave people what they wanted.
Screws.
Yeah.
Nails. Yeah, with nails.
Where someone didn't mute their phone. Penn didn't mute her phone. Anyway, well, let's get back to your world. When it sounds very much like you are heavily invested in the quality of your writing.
Yeah.
When you craft your stories, what are some of the main? I mean, how you talk about you want to write it a strong or a true PG, but when you craft these stories and you kind of have these multi-tracks of storyline, who does most of the writing, or is it a collaborative process?
Oh, well, when it comes to I Am Power Unlimited and Action Angels, that's predominantly me at present. Once I'm done with the initial story arcs that I want to do, I have certain writers and artists in mind to do other arcs, because as I said, it's a giant. The Action Angels universe is a giant universe and multiverse and getting bigger and bigger by the day. Same thing with I Am Power Unlimited. James and I, we basically mapped out the beginning and the end of that story. And now I'm basically fleshing out the middle. When it comes to as far as collaborations and what have you, I'm going to be doing that with Action Angels, but I Am Power Unlimited, that's a very set story as far as what's going to happen. With regards to Space Station Orbiter and Blackjack, again, I'd have to refer back to those respective creators, but as far as what I've seen and what we've gone over, they both got very definite storylines and histories, and Alex and Chris both. I mean, we're all sticklers for detail and really mapping things out. And so Alex has Blackjack. He's got the storyline laid out at levels I'm just constantly amazed at. And Chris has basically detailed out whole planets and civilizations and star systems and all kinds of stuff with regards to Space Station Orbiter. I mean, these are characters and concepts and themes that we've held very close and dear to our respective hearts for, in some instances, decades. So the backstories behind the lead characters and supporting characters and what have you, they're pretty extensive. But yeah, it is a balance between doing all of that, doing the layering, but also making it accessible. Because there's certain storylines, I'm like, okay, should I do that storyline or not? And then I'll just be like, you know what? No, I'm not going to do it like that, because there's a certain theme level that, and like I said, a certain rating level that I want to go at where it's as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. I don't see that as being a negative or deterrent in any way. When it came to I Am Power Unlimited, James and I went through this phase where we were like, like everybody at the time, yeah, we're going to do this like Alan Moore's Miracle Man. There's going to be death and destruction and all of other stuff. And then, at a certain point, we were like, you know what? That's not what these characters are about. These characters are smiling. They're like, okay, because William, your characters start to take on a life of their own. And,
my characters misbehave all the time.
Yeah, and they, basically they're like, what are you guys doing? No, that's we're not doing that. So yeah, I mean, we're going to touch on a number of different issues, and we're going to do them at a particular level of sophistication. But there's just some stuff that's like, you know what, you're just doing that just to be doing it, and it doesn't really lend anything to the overall story, and it doesn't add anything to the overall story. So why are you even doing it?
Let me ask you this. Do you have, obviously you're a black creative. Do you have any mythologies in African or African-American lore that surround your characters or even follow your characters?
Now, see, if I really can't say but so much with I Am Power Unlimited, because that's kind of going to give away, man, you're good. That would kind of give away the twist I was talking about.
Okay, well, don't give anything away, but at least.
Oh no. But I will say, just from my own personal experience and the things that I do in addition to comic book work and writing and what have you, I practice Kung Fu and I teach Tai Chi Chuan. And I do different types of Qigong and meditation and what have you. And I've gotten a very in-depth understanding of ancient African cosmology and spirituality and what have you. And, part of that is going to be integrated into the different storylines for both I Am Power and Action Angels, but a lot of times not necessarily in ways that people are going to expect. And because the thing is,
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that when it comes to Action Angels, remember that that second line, Angels, that ties into a number of different things, because the way that I'm approaching that isn't the standard way that you see in current literature and pop culture and things like that, like supernatural and things. I'm approaching it from a different aspect, from both ancient Hindu and Taoist, and tying it also in with Jungian psychology, and just showing the relationships between all three of them, and also showing how it relates to these various archetypes that we call superheroes. Because the best superheroes and those types of characters, they appeal at a core level because they're activating particular archetypes. I mean, Batman. Batman is basically what in ancient Egypt was called Herokuhuti. Ogun, Mars, Ares. Combined with a Saturnial aspect like Sekerd or Kali type of deal. He's got all black or blue, and he's serious and morose, and he lives underground in the underworld, and and he's got these gauntlets, and his parents were murdered. He's surrounded by death and all this stuff. It's just there's a lot of different archetypes and things that are running around with that, and that's why it has such a powerful appeal to people. And his relationship with the Joker, that is a whole nother level with that. And same thing with Superman. As I said earlier, he's like Apollo. He's the sun. And, there's a whole level to that. I mean, you got books like The Writer's Journey and, of course, Joseph Campbell, Heroes, with a Thousand Faces and things like that, that go into a bit more in-depth on that. But that is definitely a major part of where I'm coming from, just because, that symbolism, those archetypes are very powerful.
Well, that's very cool that you include those, because some do, some don't. But it also looks like you've taken the time to interweave them in both a conscious and a subconscious level within the story.
Absolutely, because the thing is, if you don't, it doesn't resonate. I mean, all the characters that people love at present, it's because they resonate to either one or a permutation of a couple of those different archetypes, those different symbols. You've got everything from there's Batman, there's Superman, there's Wonder Woman. As far as I know people are trying to turn Wonder Woman into this super semi-guy type of deal, but I mean, Wonder Woman at the beginning was, we won't go way back to the beginning because that was a whole nother thing with the whole tying up thing. But Wonder Woman as she became is it's an interesting mixed juxtaposition, because she's preaching peace, the warrior. But any true warrior knows real power is in peace. And she's basically, and her people are basically trying to educate people on that. So you have this whole you got the warrior woman, but then on the other hand, that's juxtaposed with the world mother. So people have, except for George Perez and Gail Simone, people haven't really, I haven't read Azzarello's stuff as far as Wonder Woman yet, so I can't comment on that. But those two, they really started to really touch upon that. But if you don't have I won't say if you don't. I'll just say is that it increases the depth of the character, and it increases the resonance of the character with those concepts and those symbols within people's being, when you understand what those core concepts are and how they relate to those particular characters, or even characters that you're creating. Is your character the wise old man? Is your character the young virgin? Is your character the fool? Is your character the jester? Is your character the old crone? What is your character in relation to mythology and symbolism?
And there's also that old saw that there are no new stories to tell. All the stories have been told.
Exactly.
Therefore, anything we write is a derivation of something else.
Absolutely. Like take case in point, Superman. Oh man, Superman, stranger from another planet. Well, guess what? It's based on the story of Moses. Okay, they put him in this capsule and sent him away from from someplace else. The Hulk. The Hulk is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and and Frankenstein, which then goes into the whole thing of the Changeling, and oh God, what's the other one? And then the whole thing of Grendel, and then that they all tie in, and yeah, it comes down to what are the nuances, what's the facet that you've turned on this multifaceted jewel of this particular archetype, as far as that you're going to give your particular take on it, and why is this going to work?
Right. Now, in your in a lot of your documentation, you talk about creating an online transmedia platform.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that means to you guys? To what is it? How do you express that as, or how do you explain what it is that you're trying to put together?
Based in a nutshell, and this has taken a minute to field strip down, just so you know, the business plan I put together is about 2 years ago now, including 5-year financial projections. It clocked in at 162 pages.
Okay.
And yeah. So
wait, how many pages is that? Wait. How many pages?
162 pages. People would look at
162
it
pages?
That's right. And they'd be like, excuse me, could you give me the executive summary, please?
Well, hey, don't feel bad. The reason why people said that to you is because that's about 162 pages more of an executive summary than most people put together for a new business. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm serious.
Right.
Don't feel bad about that. I mean,
right.
You're again. This is in the service of doing business.
Right.
Creativity as a business. So you went and you did that. And I will tell you that of all the people who will listen to this show, and probably most of the people who won't, that's more that you've done in the service of doing your business than about 98% of the people out there will ever do. And that's sad. Because you know what? The problem is a lot of black businesses fail, and why do they fail? Because people don't know what the hell they're doing. They either undercapitalize, they don't pay their taxes, they don't know how to do any accounting. And for me to hear from you that you put together a 150-page plus business plan tells me that two things. One, it tells me that you're serious about doing business, and also it speaks to the probability of you attaining more than 24 months' worth of success right out of the box. People should pay attention to that, but they do not.
Well, thanks a lot.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
For that, William. No, I thank you. My main thing is, you've got to have the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the one thing from all my research on Silicon Valley and tech startups and apps and game development and transmedia and internet marketing and, the current rate of technology shift, all of that, it's just a lot of things that we aren't aware of as African Americans, and that's part and parcel of one of the things that we definitely want to do is also, educate people on all of that. But my main thing with this and our main thing with this is to develop a platform, a distribution platform for professional level content globally in multiple languages. I mean, the other thing is the internet has opened up the whole world. I mean, I remember in the 90s when the whole internet thing started, and I looked at it and I went, wow. Okay, once the technology gets up to par, once the internet speeds get to the level they need to, the whole crutch and control of major media companies is distribution. It doesn't mean anything if you've got the greatest thing in the world if you can't get it in front of people. It doesn't mean anything. The internet eliminates all of that. I mean, although now with this with the
net
ruling
neutrality
on the president, with that whole thing. But you know, even then, I mean, right now there's a window. there's a window for people to take full advantage of what the internet offers. And what it offers is global distribution instantaneously to anywhere there's an internet device. Once I realized that, then it was like, okay, what kind of box are you going to put together? You know, what kind of system are you going to put together in order to present that content professionally and elegantly to people at large? And that's when I sat down, I learned wireframing, I learned how to do a prototype, you know, and I put together a user interface prototype for what became the EON, the Arthawk Entertainment Online Network. And the more people I showed it to, the more people went, wow, that's never been done before. So the thing is, transmedia, it's like, okay, here are all of these great mediums that we all love: comics, games, film, animation. Why can't we just put them all together? Because, I mean, you know, we all see it. You know, like Avengers, love Avengers the movie, love it. But the costumes, the uniforms, the storylines, they're not the same as the comic book, which isn't the same as the game, which isn't the same as the cartoon, which isn't the same as the novelization. Well, what would happen if you could line all of that up and just each of those different mediums just told another facet of the same cohesive story, the same cohesive universe, that everybody was on the same page? I mean, it would allow for a layered and a depth of storytelling that really hasn't been done before. That's why, you know, the minute back in the day they called transmedia multimedia. It's
right.
just another name for the same concept.
No, I'm very familiar with it. I mean,
right.
Yeah,
right.
but you know, advertising firms who are smart, and there aren't that many yet, they're now understanding that they are not really advertising firms; they are communications companies.
Right.
Okay, that's the new paradigm. I'm giving people. I mean, this is some inside baseball, but basically today, advertising firms that want to survive have to be multi-platform. Okay.
Absolutely.
So what they have to do is they have to understand what is the best way to get information to the people who they serve, the people who they're supposed to be selling things to. And essentially that's what it's all about. That's what the internet is largely about from a commercial point of view. And so the best thing for you to understand and to do if you're going to enter into that game is you have to be a communications company. You have to realize how to communicate with people, you know, depending upon what platform they're getting your information from. So being a transmedia company, that's a great word, and it's an important word that a lot of people won't see for maybe another year or so.
Right.
But the fact that you have already divined that in order to meet the future of not advertising, not necessarily selling something in terms of being a retail outlet, but in terms of being able to touch those people who are going to be your end users. Let's go there because that's what they are. They're end users, whether they're buying, viewing, what have you. The consolidation of a multi-platform approach is about the only thing that's really left. And as you cost-effective, wide-ranging way of making that happen. So, I mean, when you talk about a transmedia platform, the way you've described it is exactly the way I understand it. And being able to present entertainment in that medium is the wave of the future. And for those people who and for most people, it's like Jarvis doesn't think I ain't got a clock in front of my face here. If you look at the chat room,
like 6 minutes. 6 minutes.
So anyway, when you think about that, I will give you a $400,000 idea for free. Okay, this is for free. This is a $400,000 idea. This is what somebody was going to pay me for this idea. Essentially, anybody who wants to get into exactly what you're getting into has to be able to present and provide your entertainment, your art, your creative universe for mobile devices. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's the big money idea that a lot of people are not paying attention to. So you're ahead of the curve. Dude, you are so far ahead of the curve. And here you're talking about having at least your marketing stuff up in the next 48 hours. You are where most advertising companies in America, and I'm talking about the big ones. I'm talking about Starcom. I'm talking about Leo Burnett. I'm talking about all of these big-ass advertising companies. They understand content is king, but they don't know how to present it yet because they can't tune in. You've got traditional ad guys. You've got traditional media guys. If you had one of those guys in your stable, you'd have already kicked them to the curb because they don't get it yet. So my hat is off to you. I congratulate you on and I don't mean this in any cynical way at all because so many people miss it, but I congratulate you on your approach because if you have good product and you tell good stories, you are destined to win. So,
thanks.
Man,
no,
Derrick,
absolutely.
seriously, this is the coolest part about where our culture is today. Let's talk about some figures. We, 3/4 of the people out there get most of their news for the day off of their phone.
Absolutely, and it's going to increase even further. This goes talking about by 2016, about 14 or so billion internet-connected devices worldwide.
Exactly, and when you want to talk about reaching a black audience, black folks use their phones as their communications hub, even more so than other demographic groups.
I've got the Pew report, the Nielsen report that has all of that.
So
I'm not playing.
look. Okay, I want everybody in the audience who listens to this show to pay some attention here, because this is how you plan a business. This is how you plan your attack. This is how you plan to win over your audience, and this is how you plan to stay in business more than 12 months, because let's be honest, most businesses don't. You write a business plan. You stick to it. You don't undercapitalize. Anybody who wants to start a business and doesn't have enough money in their pocket to pay all their bills for the first year without making a nickel is going out of business, okay? There are so many stupid mistakes I see going on. It's just unconscionable. So Derrick, you're a great example, and I hope people do get in touch with you and talk to you about, maybe you can mentor people in how to put together an effective means of reaching an audience, because you've already got it. You already have everything that you need, man. Seriously.
Much thanks. We're definitely going to be doing that over the coming months, as far as parts of at conventions, webinars, what have you. That'll be happening. But the main thing before we have to break off that I want to say is, if at all possible, please come and support our Kickstarter. Definitely check out the site, because that's going to be growing by leaps and bounds over the next week and month and coming years. But we really, in order to really accelerate things, we really need people's support. I mean, the tweets and the shares and everything is very much loved and appreciated by all of us here at Arthawk Entertainment. But we need your support with regards to the Kickstarter, because that's not going to happen unless people, come in directly.
Right. Well, look, I want to thank you for spending time with us tonight, and for
great. The 2 hours went past like nothing, man. You're great.
Well, thank you very much. When you sit here with this ankle bracelet on, you got a lot to say. Anyway, look, thank you very much, and we'll have you back later once things get going a little bit further, so we can kind of catch up with you. Put all of your events that you're going to attend on the BSFS events calendar so people can keep up with you. You know, if you're going to show up someplace, put it on there so if somebody's in the Philly area, or even if you're traveling, especially if you're traveling outside the area, do that so that they can keep up with you and even meet you. I mean, if you come up here to C2E2,
we're going to be at New York Comic Con.
Okay, cool. Put it on the calendar, and because I just made fun of Jarvis and the whole clock thing, we're 40 seconds over.
Oh, God.
So I'm going to turn this over to Jarvis so he can say his goodbye. And again, thanks an awful lot, Derrick. I had a great time, man.
Same here, William. Thank you. Look forward to talking to you again.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for your time and coming on and supporting us on the show. I want to thank our guests for coming in and enlightening us on so many different things that we need to know from someone that's been doing it consistently for years. Also for William for making it entertaining as always. And everybody else, you know, that has shared the show and supported the site. Your support has been greatly appreciated. And I'm going to stop the recording in just a few seconds, so if anyone wants to stick around for a few more moments, feel welcome to. But thank you again, everyone. Good night.
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 Good night.